It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, how we feeling?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm fired up. Got DB with me at practice today. We had a good time.
My first question. First question is how's my boy DB doing out there?
Practice report. One video up here on the YouTube channel. It's his birthday tonight, so I think we're gonna, find some trouble to get into. The usual.
There you go. He's been to, I think, more camps than I have, so he's probably more familiar with, the Dinos, and I know he's not a drinker either, but Sharkies as well. So I don't know if he had to still check those boxes, or if if he's been.
I don't know. We don't have any firm plans as far as I'm aware. So
when I was there, you said that that Latrobe was my oyster, so I guess it's now DB's.
It's not Derek's oyster. We've passed the oyster, which you should not do. Just eat the oyster you take. Don't pass.
I like it. Alan, a little bit of news to start off this episode. Markus Golden coming back to the Steelers. And I gotta say, I love this move. I was kind of pounding the table for this earlier. I had kind of given up on the idea of this happening. But obviously with David Perales, Kyron Johnson going down with injuries, Perales actually being the corresponding move with them injuring him, that knee injury that he suffered yesterday. Looking for some more edge depth. Markus Golden certainly checks the box. He's a veteran, had 4 sacks last year, 51 in his career. Really like what he can bring from a rundown perspective as well. So I'm on board with this addition.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like a no-brainer, right? And I'm honestly like, they could have done this at any point. I'm not sure they needed an injury, like you said. Like this could have happened anyway. Markus Golden just sitting out there. I thought, the Steelers have had some trouble in terms of some older guys like trying to bring them in for part-time roles. And, it didn't work with Melvin Gordon, sort of famously. Melvin Ingram. I think, Markus Golden fit so well in the locker room, where he was just a guy that was like very happy to be here. He was a really good influence on a young guy like Nick Herbig. He accepted whatever role he was able to earn. And when they needed him to do more, when TJ Watt got hurt in the playoffs, he was ready for it. I thought he had a really good game against Buffalo in that postseason game. And so I think this is a really, really good move for the Steelers. I think the injuries making some kind of move a necessity, but I mean, compared to the other day when they're releasing guys like Josiah Scott and Marquez Callaway, and they're kind of just filling the roster spots, right? Like they're bringing in guys that maybe Tariq Black, maybe they see something in them, there's something interested, but this isn't a roster filler. This is a guy that right now I think you can put on the team. Like I think now, this sort of solidifies that outside linebacker 4 spot. Like, unless Golden comes in and he looks like he's out of shape or he doesn't have it anymore, that's probably going to be his to lose.
I was going to ask what you thought this did for the perspectives of, the guy that hasn't been injured there, Jeremiah Moon, who was still kind of competing for the spot and wasn't part of that group. Like I said, that's injured. He's still been there. Nick Farabaugh, said that he's done some things that he felt had impressed. But, if you bring in a guy like Golden, you got to think that he's above him in the pecking order now too. And Moon drops to the 5th guy.
Yeah, I would think so. I think now it probably goes down to a competition where it's like you can kind of lump Moon in with Mark Robinson and Tyler Matakevich and say, like, who's going to make this team as another special teamer on defense, in addition to Miles Killebrew. But probably in terms of, like, actually playing outside linebacker, you got to think Markus Golden and obviously Nick Herbig would be ahead. I'm really interested to see the dynamic between Golden and Herbig, because last year Golden was the 3, Herbig was the 4, and that's kind of the way it worked. Herbig has been the 3 all offseason, and let me tell you, 51 has been a problem this training camp. I think that's probably the one guy that we haven't talked about enough on this podcast in terms of how good he's been. When I'm telling you, Troy Fautanu has had much, much, much bigger problems blocking 51 than he has had 90. Like, that is a very, very interesting thing. Like, maybe it's just the styles make the fights kind of thing. I don't know. But I think Nick Herbig has been really, really good. So will Markus Golden go right back to being the 3? Or are we going to see those two kind of flip-flop here with Nick taking that step forward? And Mike Tomlin was asked about him earlier in camp. He had some, pretty complimentary. Mike Tomlin is not going to be gushing about guys the first week of training camp, but he had some pretty complimentary things to say about Nick Herbig. I think it's safe to say he's done pretty well. So that's a pretty interesting spot there now.
I was just going to bring up, Nick Herbig and his development here, a guy that's been attached to TJ Watt's hip for, his rookie year and just trying to always be a sponge and take on a bigger role. The addition of Markus Golden certainly makes things interesting, but I still think that Herbig is going to be that. I think it will be like a role reversal from last year. I guess the one difference will be like, which one plays special teams or both. Like, is Golden played special teams? How much special teams did he play last year? I don't even know.
Not a whole lot.
That's what I'm
played. Like, can you snaps and special teams last year?
Okay, like that's what I'm curious about. Like, is it possible for Herbig to still be that third edge rusher while also taking special team snaps? Although I guess if Moon still were to make the team over one of those guys on the inside and be the extra guy, maybe it's not as much of an issue.
Yeah. I don't think you're getting Golden for special teams, but Herbig plays a ton of special teams. So, I think I don't think you need all of your outside linebackers to do special teamers. If the number 3 is going to play a lot of special teams, and we'll talk about the kickoff, I guess. Herbig was on that first kickoff team. We did get the first live kickoff period today. So was Jeremiah Moon. So was Mark Robinson. I think there's a good I don't know. I think there's a pretty solid competition there in terms of between Moon and Robinson, and you can throw Matakevich in there in terms of who's going to be able to make this team as a special teams linebacker.
Okay. Interesting. What have you seen from Nick Herbig that's been so impressive to you?
Looks quicker, or maybe just more decisive, actually. Like when I see him running, I don't think he's faster, but I think the speed of he's caught up to the speed of the NFL game in a way that feels significant. And I think when you're going to be an undersized guy, that has to be your calling card. You have to be able to blow by people once in a while and really make them overset that edge so that they feel like they're worried about you all the time. And I think that's the thing that he's gotten in Fatanu's head, honestly, about a little bit, where he's beat him clean a couple times, where now I think the rookie's a little worried about it. And so I think that's been the thing that he just looks really like he's got a plan. He knows what he's doing. He's hitting the ground running. And I haven't really seen anybody give him a hard time. I think it's for a little guy, he seems to deal with being blocked really well. I don't know. He just I haven't really been super focused on him in team run periods. That's the area of his game that I always feel like probably is lagging behind. But in terms of pass rushing, man, he's having a really good summer camp.
It's awesome to hear. I did see a little bit of it, obviously, in those 2 days, but I'm just curious to see how he continues to diversify his bag, of moves. So that'll be interesting to see as well. Any specifics from today's practice? Again, they actually have to go with no pads today, so they're able to wear pads tomorrow. They wanted to be able to throw those on for the Friday Night Lights practice, obviously. So I don't know if there's anything that stood out to you in particular.
Yeah, I talked with Derek about this on the practice report, but I thought Van Jefferson probably had his best day today. I do think that a little bit of the sort of angst over Roman Wilson's injury is overblown. I think those two guys have been better than him every step of the way. Certainly you would have hoped that at some point that your third round pick would play his way into a starting job, but I don't think it was going to be anytime soon. So in terms of the outlook for the early part of the season without Roman Wilson, I don't really think it changes much to me. And I think Van Jefferson looks pretty good. He's been good these last couple days. Calvin has looked great since the spring. He looks like a total. Derek got his eyes on him for the first time this year and was like, whoa. And this is a guy that Derek's been high on since before the Senior Bowl of his draft year. And you look at Calvin Austin, it's a different guy. And so I think I'm not as maybe freaking out about the wide receiver position as a lot of other people seem to be, but I think those guys having good days certainly probably helps their cause.
Yeah, you mentioned Van Jefferson to me, and I said like right away before actually laying eyes on the way that he's looked as a Steeler, like he just looks like he fits the part, right? He looks like he should be a good NFL wide receiver. Throwing the 300 balls off the jugs now into his regiment, I think will certainly do well for him. But and obviously the opportunity, like where else was he going to have an opportunity like there is presented in front of him in the Steelers wide receiver depth chart? Like everything is wide open for these guys behind George Pickens.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those two guys are taking advantage of it. Look, Quez Watkins had a fairly nice day today as well. And with Roman Wilson out, it's been Des Fitzpatrick mostly working with the twos. That was him again up there today. And then you got Deuce Watts, Jacob Copeland, and Jeray Jenkins and Tariq Black down with the threes.
I did see as you were saying that there, I think it's because Tariq Black beat Des Fitzpatrick beat Corey Trice on a play that Nick put out there, and I like put in my mind about Corey Trice because we had that question yesterday. Did he do a little bit more today than he had been?
No pads, so yeah, he did.
Okay,
a little bit more. So we'll see if that continues when the pads go back on tomorrow. But yeah, he did some team today. Not very much, but some.
What about George's day while we're on the receivers?
Dude, George was great. I think he really got loose for the first time. He had that one big play that we all saw early in camp, but it was like a weird, bad, broken pocket and a weird coverage. And, he really like just beat some guys today for the first time. They also continue to be really successful moving him around, scored a touchdown. They somehow got him up against Patrick Queen. I'm sure the defense is trying to figure out how to not let that happen ever again. But that's a mismatch that they won. So that's the other thing is I think this whole, like, they're going to double team him every play. Like, he is going to certainly face high levels of attention, but Arthur Smith seems pretty adept at finding ways to get George loose, and they continue to. George had a nice day. Fields wasn't like super efficient or super precise today, but he kind of got the ball where it needed to go, in large stretches, moved the 2-minute offense pretty well. I think he just continues to largely, outside of maybe looking pretty rough the first couple days and that really, really good day there early when we first put on pads, I think he continues to largely look like the guy that we saw on tape from Chicago. I haven't really seen, obviously the running is impressive and he's had some good days, but it's basically the same stuff from Justin Fields. And so, there's plays to be made that are not being made out there in the passing game as well.
And what about Russ's day? I feel like it should be a daily thing where I asked about him until we do see him like in a full capacity.
Yes. Mr. Limited was once again limited. He did basically everything he did yesterday. He did Indy, he did one-on-ones. They also did 2-on-2s today, where you have two wide receivers in a pattern and two DBs have to sort of sort out the mix. 7-on-7, and then just handed the ball off in 11-on-11. Maybe they're setting up for the big Friday night's reveal of Russell Wilson. I don't know. He seems fine. I saw him running. Like, there's nothing wrong with him. This is just Mike T putting his finger on the scale, I'm pretty sure at this point.
Well, I was going to say, too, okay, so the reps have been limited, but how do you feel like he's looked within those reps?
I'm not trying to evaluate 7-on-7 reps. They don't count. Especially, like, we know Russell Wilson can throw the ball when nobody's pressuring him, standing flat-footed.
The accuracy, those things are still there.
Like, no pass rush, no offensive line. Russ could do that all day. That's not any real evaluation for a player like that.
Fair. Okay. Want to talk about fullback usage. You said you talked to Jack Coletto and Michael Pruitt today. It's interesting because Coletto, like when I was out there, felt like, man, this guy's doing way more than I expected him to. And it seems like that trend has continued throughout the week as well.
Yeah, man, we got some like real I formation football the last couple of days. It's been fun to watch. Jack Coletto, Michael Pruitt, with some 13 personnel with Pruitt as the third tight end, along with Freiermuth and Washington. So I think, kind of setting up for me like a kind of a two guys position battle there where you could keep a fullback or you could keep, a fourth tight end that can play some fullback and also block. And I think Pruitt's been a really nice receiving tight end also. Like he's made some nifty catches. And so I think that's probably the reason that I would still lean towards Pruitt making this team because he's been a much more valuable receiver. But man, you're going to see a bunch of fullback because it's everywhere in these run periods. And Jack Coletto moves some dudes, man. He's not a great athlete. He doesn't look like, a special player. But I think that just the commitment to using the fullback makes him making the team start to seem pretty realistic.
Yeah. Do you feel like those two are kind of competing for one spot though? Like, do you think there's a chance they both make the roster?
I mean, I guess you could throw Connor Hayward in there and say they're competing for 2 spots. Yeah. Okay. Cause they all can kind of move around. And obviously Connor, not anywhere near the blocker the other 2 guys are, but a much better receiver than the other. So, you can kind of say oh, okay, we don't need to do it all Pruitt because we have the one guy that blocks and the one guy that catches, Coletto and Hayward, and you can kind of use them interchangeably, or maybe you want one guy who can do it all. I don't know. I think I'll probably still err on the side of the 4 tight ends and no fullback, but the amount they're using Jack Coletto has certainly made it become a lot more viable that he makes the team.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's interesting, the fullback usage stuff, and I'm curious to see how much of that we continue to see. Was there anything else specifically about today? I know that we have a couple of YouTube things. Actually, one's going to be a pretty long form answer. So was there anything else specifically from today that you wanted to get into?
No, Roman Wilson in a boot, Weeks, and Rodney Williams limited to individual, Kyron Johnson, DNP. I think that's the whole injury report.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Cordell Patterson running off to the side. So
yeah, it looks like he's getting a bit closer.
We've seen him make a step forward since the start of camp.
Yeah. All right, good stuff. We'll start with the shorter one here. We're just looking for a Cole Holcomb update. Is Steelers Nation 43T? It made me laugh right before we started recording. You said this kind of sounds like a play call.
That's right. Steelers Nation 43T. That's like their version of the student body left. That's a Steelers Nation 43T. I could see that being a trick play call. I've not even physically laid eyes on Cole Holcomb during this training camp. I don't even know if he's here. I have no idea what their thoughts are. Mike T was pretty definitive at the end of minicamp saying that he thought Holcomb would participate in training camp. So I don't know if that means there's been some kind of setback or if this was just, the idea that he was going to come in later in camp. I don't know, but I haven't even seen him. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that situation. Has anybody other than, so if there was a 4th linebacker right now, okay, so behind Queen, Roberts, and Peyton Wilson, who do you think has kind of gotten that work?
You mean as a linebacker? It's Mark Robinson, and it's not close, but I think that's really a special teams job, pretty much.
Okay. All right. So, but Robinson's the second other inside linebacker in second team right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
that wasn't part of the question. I was curious.
P. Queen and E-Rob are not taking a ton of reps. So, I mean, we've seen a lot of Mark Robinson with the ones.
Okay. Gotcha.
In addition to Peyton Wilson.
Yeah, right. This is, like I said, a very long form thing here. Another one that I kind of have to sift through, but I appreciate that. This is from Diesel Steel 024, but he also put his name at the bottom of this as well. So Randy Predum, I'm guessing. We appreciate the comment / question here, Randy. What do you guys think out of these could have the biggest impact in changing the dynamic of this team from last year to this year? Would it be the addition of Arthur Smith, Tom Arth, Zach Azani, and other coaches, either in their first or second years here, changing game plans, coaching strategies in the strength and conditioning, acquisitions of a Super Bowl winning quarterback like Russell Wilson, the alien athlete Justin Fields, already well-known commodity Patrick Queen, or yet another seemingly on paper knocked out of the park draft with Fatanu, Frazier, and even a UDFA guy in Beanie Bishop seeing significant playing time from the jump while we have Peyton and Roman Wilson both developing.
Yeah, so this is an interesting question because I think all of those are going to result in, in their own way changes, and there's a big list there. Now, what's going to be the most significant? It's hard to say right now. I think the one thing I kind of cross off that list probably is the rookies. Like, rookies stink. I think that's the thing that, like, they're not good at football yet. They may eventually get there, but they are usually not good. And I think it's hard, especially on the offensive line, to project rookies to be big difference makers. I'm not saying that Troy Fautanu can't come in and give the Steelers at least what they're getting from Dan Moore or better. But to say that he's going to kind of change the outlook for that offensive line, I think that's probably a stretch for a rookie season for an offensive lineman. And we talked a good bit about them. So if you want to know more about Fautanu, Frazier, Mason McCormick, how those guys are looking, check out yesterday's episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. We gave about 10 minutes to the rookie offensive lineman. So I would kind of cross that one off the list. I do think that the biggest two things that you're going to see that are going to change the outlook for the Steelers team are Arthur Smith and this offense, and just a massive injection of talent at the quarterback position. I think that is the two things that we're going to see in terms of you have an offense that seems to that has a track record of having worked in the NFL, which the Steelers didn't have before. You have an offensive coordinator with a track record in the NFL, which the Steelers didn't have before. I think the plan seems to fit the personnel available to a significantly better rate than it has in the past under Matt Canada. They seem to have all the pieces they need to execute the Arthur Smith offense, maybe minus one extra wide receiver. But like they have almost all of them. Whereas before you were trying to running Matt Canada offense with this piecemeal falling apart offensive line, but you just knew it wasn't going to work. Even at this time of year, you felt like maybe it wasn't going to work. And then I think there's a very high probability that the Steelers will get better quarterback play this year, regardless of who ends up starting or how it works or if who gets hurt or whatever. They have that, depending on which metric you like the best, Kenny Pickett was about the 25th to 27th best quarterback in the league last year. I feel very confident in saying that Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields could be better than that. How much better? I don't know, but I think they're going to be better. And I think there is a trickle-down effect. When you have a really, really bad offense, it hurts your defense. That offense held the Steelers defense back. How little time did the Steelers defense get to play with a lead last year? Like they were a top 6 defense and never played from ahead ever. Because even when they won, Kenny Pickett was leading them to fourth quarter comebacks. Like they were never playing ahead. How many more sacks can TJ Watt have? How much better can they be against the run when they are finally able to put some teams into some situations where they have to throw the ball? Like that, that's such a big part of the equation from last year. So I think the offense is where the change will come from. And I think it mostly comes from the addition of Arthur Smith in this new scheme. And Arthur Smith personally. I had a nice segment on Steelers Morning Rush a couple days ago about Arthur Smith and just his personality, I think is a big addition as well. And then the quarterbacks, man, I think they're going to be like, if people are getting excited about what they're seeing from Justin Fields, and I'm like, just wait, because this is just the Justin Fields that we've seen. And I understand it's exciting. And I predicted on this show that people would get overly excited about the highlights from Justin Fields from training camp. Russell Wilson is better. Like it's going to get even better when we see number 3 out there. And so I think there's good reason to feel hope about this offense. I still think on paper it's probably an average roster, but I think it's got some nice upside in some areas and just a lot fewer gaping holes.
I'll piggyback off of Arthur Smith, but I'll choose something different as a second thing as the reason. Arthur Smith, everything that you just said, I also just feel like, the buy-in, players understanding the purpose for the things that they're doing. Like there's just so much more detail within this offense that I think we're going to see come to fruition. And I think that that's important in the messaging to the players, understanding why they're doing something. So I think that's, where I'll start there. And then I think just like the speed that they have on defense with the additions of Dante Jackson and Patrick Queen, that was to me what really stuck out. Like, very good defensive unit last year for sure. But when they would get taken advantage of, it was because they didn't have the speed to keep up on the other end. I mean, whether you're talking about the Houston game, like the San Francisco game, like those games where that really came to the forefront where they couldn't match teams' speed sideline to sideline. I think what Patrick Queen is going to do at the second level, also maybe not talked about enough what that will do for the third level in terms of like Minka not having to do things inside the box that he had to do last year and getting him back to being Minka. So I think the additions of Dante Jackson and Patrick Queen to me and the speed that they're going to bring on that side of the football is certainly up there for me in terms of the most important boxes that they checked.
And like having 97, 90, and 39 on the field and healthy at the same time would be pretty nice too.
Yeah.
Like
certainly.
That's one of those additions that is not an addition, but certainly would be a big deal.
Sure. Yeah. It's honestly, you're right. It was just this question when I was looking at it and reading it, it was like on paper from last year to this year. And certainly those guys were on paper, but you're right. They didn't play a whole heck of a lot of snaps together in 2023. And again, so that makes it all the more impressive where this defense was a year ago and scary to think about where they could be this year.
Yeah, I agree.
Is there anything that you've seen so far that's maybe stood out that you didn't expect to see through these training camp practices?
The amount of fullback usage, like we talked about, that's been unexpected to me. I've talked a good bit about Najee Harris's physicality and level of involvement. That's been unexpected to me. I think that not too much that's like really caught me by surprise. Those are probably the two big ones. I think Arthur Smith has just been, like when you saw the press conference clips of Arthur Smith, like he kind of came off as a jerk a little bit. Like he like in Atlanta as the head coach, like they were a little contentious. He certainly didn't seem like a guy I thought I was going to get along with. I really enjoyed talking to Arthur Smith. Derek Bell had a wonderful interaction with him today where Derek starts talking about one of Arthur's favorite concepts, and Art said, "Hey, I should hire you to come help me game plan." It seems like, I don't know, maybe he's just a Pittsburgh kind of guy. I do like the mustache. I mean, that was, we talked about that. You did more than talk about it. But
yeah, might come back.
I feel like that was an essential part of the package. He needed to come here with the mustache. Otherwise, he wasn't going to be accepted but does Arthur Smith not feel like to you, just in maybe what you were able to glean from being around him, like a guy that's going to really enjoy being in Pittsburgh?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. That's what I thought about too. Like, I mean, we don't know how long this is going to last, right? But like, it almost feels like he should have already been here. Like, I don't know.
Right?
Like, he's indoctrinated himself very well. Already has like like you mentioned, because of the stash, like a cult like following as well in that perspective. Yeah, like I think that he's very quickly felt like he should have been here.
Would it surprise you at all if you jimmied the lock on Arthur Smith's dorm room and you go in there and there's like a milk crate full of Turner's iced tea cartons and like whatever. He just seems like this is where he should have been all along. Very similarly in the vein to Landon Roberts, who I'm very, very happy that he is getting some flowers for the kind of guy that I think he was all last year and the attention that I think he deserves. But like, that guy should have been a Steeler from day one. I think Arthur Smith should have been a Steeler too, man. Like and look, he was with Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. So he certainly got like a lot of those vibes, right? That's kind of system he came up in, very similar to what the Steelers had under Cowher, which is where Vrabel learned. And so I can see a lot of that. It just I don't know. I wasn't expecting to like him as much as I have. Just as a guy, as a competitor, as a coach on the sideline, he's fun to be around. The players really seem to like him. I think that's probably honestly been one of the biggest surprises of training camp. It's just like Arthur Smith is cool, and like a very unique character and personality, and not this sort of standoffish guy that he's kind of projected in those, or at least the clips I saw of those head coach press conferences from his time in Atlanta.
The coaching staff's about to go to dinner, and they're like, "All right, you coming?" He's like, "No, I'm good. I'll stay back. I got some chip chopped ham. I'll be all right."
He's on the
And some Saris chocolate pretzels.
Turner's tea and Marlboro Lights diet, as so many of some. Although maybe a vape pen now to sort of update the to update the caricature. But
he's on the Mike McDaniel diet.
Yeah.
Are you worried about losing DB to Arthur Smith?
I mean, at least if I do, I'll have a decent source on the coaching staff. So I got that going for me, which is nice.
Yeah, I gotta say, there's got to be a video of that happening, right? Like, the Steelers will hopefully post his media availability, and I can see it because I saw Nick quoting it, but I got to see it actually take place.
I have the audio. I don't have the video.
Okay,
but I can send you the audio.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, you know the drill. Tell the people where they could find you, other than at Friday Night Lights practice tomorrow. A little bit different look.
Yeah, if you're coming to Friday Night Lights, look, Friday Night Lights is the most fun day of training camp for the fans and the least useful day of training camp for the journalists. Like we don't get anything from that day. So bother me if you feel like coming to bother me. Like, come give me a shout out from the crowd. I'll take time out of my Friday Night Lights to talk to you because there's nothing else going on. It's just everything that you guys can see. And so it's really cool the Steelers do it. It's great for the city of Latrobe. It's sort of like the football version of Hoosiers, right? Where like the whole freaking town's there, and I like it. But I'm not getting a lot of content out of that day. So come hang out, shout me out if you see me on the field or wherever. And it's usually an exciting practice. They try to put on a good show.
Okay. There we go. What about on socials, Alan?
At @Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. At PGH Steelers Now is the site's account, SteelersNow.com. Go there, read the words so that I can get paid. And like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss an episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive, of Steelers Morning Rush, our Steelers practice reports, our Steelers sights and sounds, our Steelers interviews. We have so much content. Don't miss any of it. And we've had many people ask about a podcast feed for the Morning Rush that is coming, still in the works. Working out some technical details. I'll keep you posted.
What, they don't want to watch on YouTube? They don't want to see you?
No, would you?
I do Monday through Friday.
If you could avoid it, wouldn't you do this show without having to see me? I mean, let's be real.
No, I love the way that we do this. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit us in the comments with your thoughts, anything we talked about today, question for future episode, all that good stuff. Follow us on TikTok, as Alan says, Steelers Afternoon Drive. Like and subscribe if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. Search Steelers Afternoon Drive. You will find us there. Follow me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in. Take another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.